welcome to another Friday night. We started last week a new little series on anger, and I'm doing it because what I've seen over the years is that anger is a very big issue for many people from complex trauma. It's an issue that often they're not totally aware of, and it has layers of complication to it that most people coming out of more healthy homes don't really struggle with when it comes to anger. Well, one of the things that I realized early on is when I first would teach seminars about anger, I would have so many people come up to me and go, I don't have anger issues. And I kind of knew them a little bit, and I'm going, whoa, I know they've got anger issues. So there's a level of denial or lack of awareness in them that in their mind, they don't have anger issues. And what I began to realize is their idea of anger issues was somebody that was exploding violently, and that was an anger issue. They didn't see some of the ways their anger was leaking out constantly, and so they just assumed because they didn't explode all the time, they didn't have anger issues. And often by the end of the seminar, they'd come back and say to me, now I'm angry at you because now I see that I've got some anger issues. So what I'd like to do today is really help you understand or look at things that would indicate that maybe you have anger issues if you've gone for years thinking that you don't, when actually maybe you do. And I think it's important just to say up front is I'm not doing this to judge you or put you down. A child being mistreated, abused, neglected, needs aren't being met, they have legitimate anger. And the problem is that in a healthy home, they could express that anger, and that would cause the parents to be alerted that something is very wrong here we need to fix. But for the child growing up in complex trauma, if they express that anger, that they're not being treated properly, then they get punished for it. They get told that they're bad for being so angry. And so they have to learn to repress their anger to survive. And they can repress it so much that soon they're not even aware of it. They find other ways to kind of express that anger, let it leak out where they're not going to get judged, that are more socially acceptable. And so it's important to understand, I think, is that this was a survival skill, and soon you become unaware of it, but that anger still does leak out, and that's what I want you to look at. And so again, there is the anger issue of the violent explosions, losing it, flying off the handle, strong emotional force. We're familiar with that. But that's only one way that anger expresses itself. And so what we're going to look at is, if that's not your way, how can we tell there's maybe still anger being expressed in more subtle ways? So we're going to look at how you react in situations, how you communicate, how you handle frustrations. We're going to look for other patterns, other things, and one thing alone doesn't indicate that you have a serious issue. It's when you start to see a bunch of different things that go, okay, see, there's something here that's pointing to anger. So the first one is anger that becomes passive-aggressive behavior, or you're underhanded in how you express your anger. You're sneaky. You're expressing your anger, but it doesn't even look like you're angry. So, for example, you use sarcasm. And so you turn a shot into a joke. You say something that's a bit derogatory or hurtful to a person, then you go, oh, I'm just kidding. And so if they try to say, oh, are you angry at me? Oh, no, I'm just joking. And then some people just get expert at kind of little shots. So it's like they're just talking about the person and pointing out different things. And then it's a little shot that just kind of put in with all of the other stuff. And you're not sure, is this anger or this just part of them trying to describe me? But it doesn't feel right. It feels there's an edge to it. but they get really good at it. And then if you ask, are you angry? They can deny it. But then there's other ones that is where you'll forget things intentionally. So you get asked to pick something up or do something, and you purposely don't do it. And so when they call you on it, you just, I forgot. I'm so sorry. Meanwhile, you've hurt them. You've got them upset because you didn't do it. Or you give people the silent treatment where they want to talk and you just, I don't feel like it. And you shut them out. That's a passive aggressive. That's an anger. That's, I'm going to punish you by not talking to you. Or you withdraw love. So they come to connect. They come for a hug, for affection, for nearness, for warmth. And they hit this cold wall. You ice them out. And many parents do that with children in complex trauma families as a way to punish them, as a way to make the child desperate. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just give me the love that I need. It's a manipulation tactic as well. Some go to one-word answers. So how was your day? Fine. What are you doing tonight? Nothing. And so you try to engage them in a conversation and you just get a one-word answer. And you say, is something bothering you? Nope. Well, it seems like something's off. Nope, fine. And you can't explore. You can't try to find out anything. You're just shut down repeatedly. And then another one is that they agree to do things for you, but then they don't follow through. And so it's, again, they're making it look like they love you, but then they do things that hurt you. So those are passive aggressive or underhanded. And that's anger. That's trying to hurt the other person, but in very subtle ways. Another indicator that a person may have anger issues is the sudden mood shifts that go from being kind of very warm to almost just in a heartbeat. They're cold and distant. And you go, what happened here? They were so warm and engaged, and something happened, and poof, they just shifted to the exact opposite. Or they're very warm and friendly, and then they get just super irritated at everything you do. Or you see this very calm person, and then all of a sudden their whole body, there's a tension in their body, in their face. All their body language now has an angry look to it. And it just is this rapid switch that can take place. And then part of kind of anger issues is irritability is often very close to the surface. So they can get irritable, excessively irritable over little things. So it's not like they're exploding all the time. They're just frequent sighing, rolling their eyes, muttering. So there's just this little displays of annoyance, of irritation that you're just picking up, and then they move more rapidly and they grab things and I'll do it for you. And that kind of stuff is just there all the time. And for some people, it's like almost everything annoys them. It doesn't matter how good things are, they are going to find something negative to be annoyed about. So that to me is a sign that there's some anger, lava deep down in the volcano that's just bubbling away. Another, to me, indicator of a person with anger issues is often, like if they're not an exploder, that often they're going to be a person that just bottle things up. So they don't express emotions. They just hold it in and put on a happy face, a stiff upper lip. And so if you ask them, how are you doing? I'm fine. You know there's some issues going on in their life, and you ask if they want to discuss them. They don't want to discuss them. Nope, things are good. And so often it's just like, wow, they're bottling up a ton of emotions, not just anger, but hurt, fear, anxiety, stress, and they refuse to discuss anything and deal with anything. And you begin to go, someday that's going to explode. Someday that's going to turn into resentment. That's going to turn into anger. And often it does. Another indicator to look for of anger issues is somebody that is just kind of negative. and critical. That's their bent. They just notice, it's like they're looking for something to criticize, something to be negative about. They can go into a situation, everybody goes, oh, that was a great day. And they find one or two things about the day that made it a terrible day. And so there's just this negative orientation, bias, critical. And so they're constantly little complaints, little whining, little dropping hints that they'd like things to be different, that things aren't the way they want them. That to me usually indicates there's some underlying anger that's working away. Another thing that can happen with many people with anger issues is that they become quite controlling and perfectionistic. So they now up the standard for everybody in their life, that you now have to treat me perfectly. You now have to do a job for me the instant that I want it done, and you better do it perfectly. You better respond to my request immediately. So there's no grace period. There's no let's wait and give people a normal amount of time to respond. It's you better do it now. You better do it perfectly. So they just create this new standard for everybody, and it's very controlling, it's very perfectionistic, it's unrealistic, but that's what begins to happen. And so nobody can meet that standard. So that then feeds, they can blame everybody, they can be critical, they can be negative, and rationalize their anger that way. Another indicator of anger issues is just looking at the body. So they carry the anger in physical tension. So there's tight jaw, there's kind of clenched fists, there's short responses, sharp responses, there's tense posture. They just can't relax. And you can see it in their physical body. Usually what happens when people have this lava underneath that they're bottling up, but you're seeing little indicators, is there will be some leak moments. And so they can kind of keep it bottled up. But every once in a while, there's going to be a sharp comment that comes out, something very unkind, just a very quick, explosive reaction, but it doesn't really suit what just happened. It's a bit over the top. And they can be calm for long periods of time, and all of a sudden they just snap. And so it's just like the pressure builds to such a point that it has to come out. And it does. And then they bottle everything back up again and feel guilty that they let it out. Another characteristic of a person with deep anger issues, and sometimes they're not even aware of this, but there's deep resentments and growing resentments towards people who have hurt them in the past. And it's just like whenever you mention that person's name, they just develop this hardness. They have only negative to say. And it's not a person who was a predator or who did terrible wrong to them. It's a person who kind of did one thing, and they're normally a pretty good person, but they can only see them negatively. And it's like they're harboring this hatred, this animosity, this desire to see that person punished somehow. And it's just, there's a whole bunch of it down below the surface. And then I think another key thing to understand is that many people, when they repress their anger, so when they go passive aggressive and they do all the other things I talk about, it's kind of leaking it outward. But for many people that repress their anger, they turn it inward. And so now they hate themselves. Now they punish themselves because they think it's their fault. They think they're the problem. They're the one that's not good enough. And so there can be self-harm. There can be this powerful internal critic that's constantly finding fault with themselves. There can be this need to punish themselves and not give themselves pleasure, and to just tear themselves down in their own mind. Some go to just this deep self-hatred towards parts of themselves or all of themselves. So that's this strong anger turned inward. So those are indicators of deep anger issues that you might not be aware of, and you might think, I don't have any anger issues, but maybe you're starting to see that maybe I do. So let me end by just talking about once anger leaks out, once anger starts to get expressed, what happens in a person. So some physical indicators, emotional indicators, those kind of things. So physical indicators is, again, once anger starts to come out, usually your body responds. So you clench your fist, you clench your jaw, you raise your voice, you get more aggressive in tone, your breathing increases, your heart rate increases, you have more energy, so you start pacing, or you feel very much kind of out of control. You get afraid that I'm going to lose it and I won't be able to stop myself. So that, if that begins to happen in you, that's kind of anger, your body responding. And then some of the emotional behavior that is going to be happening, and we've talked about some of this, is just as anger is building and getting close to coming out, is your irritability is increasing. You're getting annoyed more frequently than you usually do. You start overreacting to minor frustrations. You now find yourself with little outbursts, yelling, screaming, insulting other people. And then you have difficulty calming down once you've been upset. And then you hold a grudge. You just feed on it afterwards and go over and over in your mind. And it just grows into this deepening hatred and anger. Or you begin to blame everybody for what they've done. It's their fault, and you don't take responsibility. Or you slide back into making this very passive aggressive and doing all the things that we talked about. And then in your thinking, as anger is building, is often your thinking gets more black and white. So they always disrespect me. They're the enemy. I'm the good guy. It's all or nothing. You can't see that, oh, they're just having a bad day, or man, they're a wonderful person, but they disagree with me in this one area. No, they're the enemy. They're always disrespecting me. And so that leads to a type of thinking that I'm self-righteous. I'm right, they're wrong. And so now I can look down on them. I can develop a hostile attitude towards them because they're the enemy. I can feel justified in lashing out at them now because they're trying to harm me, and I'm just protecting myself. And then your thinking can get very obsessive. You just go over and over and over. And what I have found with many people is that they can control their thinking sometimes during the day when they're busy. But when they start to relax at night before they go to sleep, that's when all of their thinking and replaying the events that generated the anger start to happen in their mind. And some start going into revenge thoughts and then revenge fantasy. What I wish I could do to that person. Boy, if I had a cape and I was a vigilante, I would do this and take care of them. And then just they get more and more negative, more and more critical. But what I hope you're seeing is all of these thoughts just fuel more anger. They're just feeding into the problem. They're not resolving it. And then behaviorally, some people can begin to punch walls, slam doors, throw things, break objects. They can begin to get verbally abusive, name calling, threats. They can get intimidating and physically aggressive. And so that begins to cause problems in maintaining relationships, maintaining jobs, maintaining even friendships. So again, I hope that helps you begin to understand how anger is working below the surface and how it leaks out, and that maybe you're able to begin to go, okay, I see it now. I do have some anger issues. So if that helped, please like, subscribe, share, make a comment. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day.